Hey, everybody out there. It's Wednesday night. This is If You Drink on Vet Radio Syndicate, and I am your host, Heather Clark. And I have a special guest host with me tonight. Who's this?
What's up? Oh, wrong way. What's going on, girl?
Mr. Chris Turner. He's usually a guest on the show. He's on here every couple of months. You guys know Chris is the inspiration for the If You Drink podcast. We do a lot of veteran suicide prevention work together. His song, If You Drink, and the amazing music video he did with Randy Couture about bringing veterans together as community and VFW and veteran organizations. Don't drink by yourself. If you're going to drink, you want to come have a drink with your brother and sister. So that's what this podcast is doing, is continuing Chris's mission. And he's on here to co-host because we have a very special guest tonight. So how are you been doing? It's been a minute since I've actually seen you.
I've been great, man. I've been writing some music, doing some good stuff. I'm really excited about Talking Dead tonight, man. It's going to be really cool with the lovely Miss Kerry Cahill. And, I mean, we just, like today, I was in a writing session earlier today, and just the creativity. I mean, it's really cool. I've got a new project coming out this summer called Reflection, and I'm really excited about the material that's on it, and it's going to be really cool because this whole project is a reflection of who I am. So, you know, we've already done promo photos. I'm sure people have seen them. Me teasing people with them on Instagram and social media. And, we're talking about filming a video from a single coming off this project called Cowboy Like That. We've got the release through Sony Orchard with my song All in the Same Boat coming up in May. So, yeah, it's a busy time right now. And then on top of that, I'm just doing shows, as many shows as I can. To mention that, we're going to be in Memphis, Tennessee this weekend, doing a show with the VFW commander, Brian Walker, and it's called Operation TP because we're trying to build the world's largest toilet paper pyramid. Uncle Si is going to be there. I've got some really cool artists like the Doc Gaskins is going to be there. He's a veteran. Savannah Ray, who is an uber talented girl, man. She's got a great band behind her. Grace Askew from The Voice, she's going to be there, and of course, we're headlining, so it's going to be fun, man. If you guys find yourself in Memphis, come on out. We're going to have a good time.
Yes, and I'm really excited because Chris is about to release this album. I got the sneak peek of A Cowboy Like That, and first time I ever heard it, I was like, this is like country back in the day, like when we were kids. This is back to old country, and in fact, I actually played it for my boyfriend, and he is a good old boy like you, and he was just like, oh my God, like, I have not heard anything like this for probably 30 years, so we're all really excited about you releasing that.
And yeah, that's what. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's the really cool part about it is like, it's traditional with a modern twist on it. And me and my co-writer Jamie Adamson, when we was writing this song, the one thing that we sat there and we both came up with, he was talking about his daddy, and I was talking about my best friend and my brother, and I looked over at him. I was like, man, they just don't make them like that anymore. And we got to writing the first and the second verse, and then as we got through it, it's like, remember those get her done cowboys? And then at the end of it, we got stuck. And we got to shooting a game of pool, and I was like, you know what? I got the hook. He said, what? I was like, on the 8th day, God made a pair of boots and a Stetson hat for a cowboy like that. And we was just, the rest of the song wrote itself in like 5 minutes.
Being from Wyoming, that spoke to me.
Yeah, it's just the inspiration, man. You never know when it's going to hit. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about it. There's a lot of buzz around town going on about it. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm just going to write and play my stuff, and whatever happens, happens.
Well, I hope to get up there soon. My boyfriend's been bugging me about. He wants to go catch one of your shows. He's a Marine too, and he's got the country boy thing going. So he's a big fan. He's like, we need to get over there and catch one of those live shows because he really wants to meet you. But hopefully we'll make it up there soon. But we've got a really amazing guest coming on tonight. We had a great veteran in Georgia, Mike Madsen. And you met Mike at one of your shows when you were in Georgia.
I did, yeah.
He has just brought some really amazing people to Vet Radio Syndicate. I want to thank him for the connection to Kerry. First time I ever talked to Kerry, she's just so easygoing and laid back. I could have talked to her all day. She's such a great person. And she's not only doing amazing things in the acting world, she, has so many TV shows and movies, more than I can actually name. And of course, The Walking Dead, which we're all huge fans of. But she's also the daughter of a veteran. And she has used her platform to really dig her heels into helping veterans in many different nonprofits. And we're really excited to talk to her about acting, about the show, and stuff that she's got going on with this new project called Vision Coalition. So without further ado.
Hello. Am I in?
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Hi. I'm good. I'm trying to make sure I keep going the wrong way. There I am. I'm great. How are you guys? That was great.
Oh,
Great.
I'm hot because my air conditioner broke, but other than that, I'm good.
Yeah.
I have to have a lot of cold beer. I don't know what you guys are drinking tonight, but I'm drinking up this little like seltzer beer that I picked up in Cincinnati. I was up there in Columbus and I picked this up, and man, it's really, really good. And Chris, of course, has got his Whiskey Helps shirt on.
Whiskey helps, but I'm drinking beer tonight. I figure if I drink beer, whiskey on this podcast, I didn't know if I'd make it through it. So I figured I'd stick to the light stuff.
I am out of beer, so I'm drinking wine, which is okay. It's fine.
Which is good too. It's all good.
So y'all want to do a toast before we start the show?
Yeah. What are we toasting?
This is why I start my shows with my song. So here we go. If you cheat, hope it's death that you're cheating. If you lie, lie with someone you love. But if you fight, do it for the right reasons. But if you drink, hell, come drink one with us. Cheers.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cheers. You stole my toast.
Oh, man.
We'll do it again at the end. No, but that's a great toast. We do a lot of toasts in the veteran community for various things, and that's from the song If You Drink. So I use that one a lot, and it's a good one. But tell us a little bit about, your backgrounds. We have a lot of veterans interested in acting. You have a really amazing pedigree for acting, the education that you got for acting, all the different diverse projects that you've been in. Let us know about that.
So I got into acting. So the first 5 years we were ultra Army brat, and then Dad went to National Guard and we moved anyway, because I think we were all just used to it. And so I got into acting when I was like in 6th grade. And I basically joined drama club, but I also did sports and band. So I've always been like the weird kid that no one really knew where to put me because I was in everything. But I never, ever, ever did not do drama club. And then I ended up majoring in theater, where I actually learned how to build sets. I also learned how to do lighting, stage manage, all that stuff. And then I basically always tell people that, like, I don't think I chose acting because I don't think I would have chosen such an unstable job. I feel like I have to, like, I don't know what else I would do to be happy. Like, I love it. And part of that I think is like, it's storytelling. It's storytelling, and it's giving people a perspective on characters and stories that they wouldn't see otherwise, and my dad was a really great storyteller. And I think I sort of like inherited this want to just sort of tell stories, and my dad was a chief warrant officer who was also a PA and worked at Fort Hood before he died, and lots of other things like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think we can all speak to that, of later in life, I've changed careers several times, and I finally kind of just fell back into veteran work because that's where my heart was, and that's the draw that I had, and I'm sure Chris probably feels the same way about music, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, like you, Kerry, I don't think when you're in the arts field, it chooses us. We choose it. It kind of chooses us. So for me, my background with, I got a backstory, make you shit yourself. But for me, it was always lyrics and song to where I could write. And I used my 6th string and a legal pad to work that out. And that's where it all came from. So, I guess to each his own, whether it's acting or painting. And it's just such a great release, whenever you're in the arts field. And, it's not for everybody, but when you find it, it's like a drug, man. It's hard to get rid of.
Yeah. Well, and I tell people a lot too. I'm like, check out your community theaters. Check out this. Like, it doesn't have to be your career. It can just be something you do to help yourself get it out. You can sketch, you can paint, you can spell. It doesn't matter if you do it for a living. It matters if it helps you get it out, Right.
I got me and Heather and I, we have a mutual friend who's a veteran who lives here in Cookeville. And he's a filmmaker and he does acting on the side, but he's a disabled veteran. Mm-hmm. He's a 13-year Marine. And he does it it's his release. And I was with him the other day because he came down to film one of my shows, and he's like, man, I just do this because this is my therapy, just like the music is for you. He's just like, I just love shooting. I was like, well, good for you, man. It's just a way to get rid of it. So that way you don't sit there and have to fight those demons all the time. It's a way to get rid of them for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of demons, you face some pretty gnarly ones. I know our viewers are going to want to hear about.
So the only reason I get to laugh is because I'm on a veterans podcast, because I have a pretty dark humor, because I feel like you have to. So, but my dad was actually murdered in the Fort Hood shooting in 2009.
Oh, no.
Which was awful. And he actually charged the gunman. And a lot of people are alive today. There's a couple kids with his name, you know. And so I was like a starving actor in Chicago at the time. Like I was like taking classes and eating like, 25-cent bologna that was on sale and was probably expired. It wasn't, but it was. And it like it came at a time when I felt like I didn't quite know what to do with the spotlight on me. And basically what ended up happening is, when we could get interviewed or whatever, we talked about multiple things, because my dad was a very interesting man and very, very wide. Like he read like books and cross-referenced them for fun. Like if you ever looked at my parents' house, it looked like a library that someone happened to live in, you know? And so, yeah, like, and dad read all the books. Like, it's not like they just owned them. Like he read them. So I come from a really quirky background is what I tell people. And so basically when I was talking to the prosecution once, they used this term loss of mission. And I thought about that with my dad. And so it was like, one of the things I was like, he was at the Soldier Readiness Center. And so he would interview soldiers before they deployed and after they deployed. And because he had also worked at the VA, he knew what he had to write down. And so he wouldn't let soldiers leave without being really clear about what happened. Where did they possibly get injured? Did they think of it? All those things, because if it's not on the, sheet. And then he would literally like walk soldiers where they needed to go. Like we got letters from Afghanistan of soldiers deployed when he died. And so sort of that abyss where I was like, what can I do? Because I'm not a PA and I didn't join the military. I had asthma, and at the time they wouldn't let you in. And I like needed to run. So I was like, I don't think it's good in a war zone to be like, hold on a sec, let me just do this. I don't think it's a good idea. So, but I was like, okay. And then when I started to get more work, and with all of the attention from the news for the shooting, I was like, I'm a good megaphone. I was like, I can be a megaphone, and I was like, that's something I can do. And so, and I also lived in New Orleans after Katrina, where the suicide rate was out of this world. And so I know quite a few people who've committed suicide. My dad knew a lot. And it's one of the things that I was like, I know it well enough that like I can talk about it, where I do a lot of stuff with this group called Help Heal Veterans. And when they like talk to me about suicide prevention, I just like rattle stuff off, and they're always like, and I'm like, no, I know this because it's sad, but I know it because, you have to. And so it's just the thing that I was like, I can do this. And often if you're a Gold Star family member, particularly with soldiers who deal with any survivor's guilt, we're kind of the ones who can be like, it's okay. And if it doesn't come from us, it doesn't sound the same, because like, I'm like, there's so many people who made it out of that building alive that, I knew a lot of medics that were like, that picture of your dad that makes me cry. And I'm like, not to say you don't get to process that, but to say that like, I'm telling you, my dad is happy you're here. I'm telling you, he is happy you're here. Like he didn't charge the shooter so you could feel terrible the rest of your life, And that's one of the things I promised myself when that happened, is I was like, that, he might've killed my dad, but he didn't kill my life, And right. So how do you keep moving through that and through the dark days and crawl out of the holes when they're really deep, and all that is a whole, spectrum of book I should write someday, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
So do you feel acting that you're able to kind of process some of those emotions and feelings? Because The Walking Dead is a very emotionally intense show.
Yeah, I do. And I think that's one of the things that acting can give us. Like I did a one-woman show about a fighter pilot. And that show, I got to process so much and just release it. And And I think acting and storytelling and music are places where you can put all those intense feelings and let them go. And then they don't have to live in here anymore, you know? And I think it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we've all dealt with, you know, people committing suicide. I was just talking to you the other day, you know, it's been a year anniversary since my dad committed suicide. And, you know, I just know people in active duty that committed suicide. I had a veteran in crisis right before I came on the show that was literally like, I'm going to do it like right now. And so I was like scrambling to connect with resources that I had in Oklahoma to get him the help that he needed, because oftentimes I've had personal experience taking people to the VA ERs and then turning them away. And so it's really great that we have all these nonprofits that can step in and fill in the gaps and be there at the moment that they need them.
Yeah.
And Chris, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what Crosswinds does, because I was telling Kerry a little bit about that is for the family as well as the veteran.
Yeah, and to back up on Kerry's testimony just a second ago, you know, with your dad charging the gunman to stop fire, right? As a veteran, and Heather can attest to this. I mean, we are trained, you know, if our brothers are in harm's way, if it's a grenade, you jump on a grenade. I mean, you take care of your brother. And the saying is, we've always got your six. So your father's a hero, and I know it doesn't make it any easier to do that. So, hey, bravo to him for, you know, doing what he did, because it's amazing to see, you know, to see the mission carried out. And he's talking about loss of mission, which comes to my nonprofit that I support, which is Crosswinds Foundation. So Crosswinds is a big 501c3. Well, under that, an umbrella is called Warriors on Mission. And what we do with Warriors on Mission is the founder, Bob Waldrop, who was I met about 3 or 4 years ago. His father was a World War II vet, and he had PTSD really, really bad. So Bob, in his adult life, he developed a curriculum called the Warrior Hope Curriculum that teaches about healing, opportunity, peace, and empowerment.
Okay.
So what we do is we go to VFWs and American Legions, and we train leaders in this curriculum. It's a leadership curriculum. And then what the leaders are to do with this curriculum is recruit from their post and their legions to participate in a 10-week class of this curriculum, to where it's like vets helping vets, because there's so many vets who's like, I ain't going to the VA, man. I'm not going to do that. But if they are learning this curriculum and how to deal with their post-traumatic stress and their moral injury from their brothers inside of their post, they're more likely to get help. And I'm the first one to say stop 22, man, but we'll never stop 22. My job's to stop one. I just want to stop one. So what we do after that is we do this thing called the Freedom Tour, which I'm the headliner on. We'll go to these posts in these American Legions, and we will use that platform as a recruiting tool for the post to get vets to come and sign up for what we call a Center of Hope. And the concert is more of like, hey, you know what? Thank you. Here's your leaders for the curriculum. How about get some help? Because you're learning from your brothers and not a complete stranger with a psychologist's degree in the VA. So that's our whole mission. And this year, you know, we did Georgia and Tennessee last year. And I talked to Bob earlier this week. The state commander from Oklahoma got wind of it, and he's wanting to take it statewide in Oklahoma and Mississippi and Arkansas, and maybe the northeastern tip of Louisiana. So it's growing. I mean, it's really exciting. And for me, it's, you know, he's talking about loss of mission. The biggest thing that I struggled with whenever I got out was like trying to find that mission. And it was just so dark for me, because I'm like, you know, you go from somebody having your back, always got your six, and then you come out here and it's a dog eat dog world and nobody has your back. So you try to find that camaraderie because you crave it. And then I think, you know, the closest thing I've been able to find is the music business, because the musician community is a family, just like the acting family is. And no matter what I do, my guys and my crew, they've always got my back. They're always looking out for me. If I'm at a show and something goes sideways, they pull me to the side and we handle business. So I'm glad that my mission to be able to still serve through Centers of Hope and Warriors on Mission and Crosswinds Foundation, and doing veteran podcasts like this and the Stop 22 tour, and just we got to get the word out, man. So, you know, I've got my own story about how I lost a Marine. So that's my main motivation for like trying to do this, because he was suffering bad from PTSD and moral injury, and I couldn't save him. He left my room and hung himself, and I live with that. So, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, girl.
Yeah. Well, and I like that it's HOPE. It's that your acronym is HOPE, because I think that's the thing that I see a lot of veterans struggle with, that they just kind of think this is their life now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only way they're ever going to live. And there's no hope that it might get better.
Right.
And it's one of the things I was talking to Heather about, of like changing a bit of the story, of reminding them as well that, like, you know, a veteran-owned business is more likely to be successful.
Right.
You know,
And
you've seen more of the world than most of America. You work with a vast array of different people. There's skills you bring as a veteran. And so to remind them, it's like, you know, find your mission, find your place. And then it's so interesting that you mentioned that you got out and nobody had your back, because there's this beautiful community in New Orleans called Bastion Community of Resilience, started by a veteran who talked about that. And he said he got out and he didn't live near anybody who'd been in the military. And so Bastion is specifically for veterans, because, you know, World War II, everybody participated in that war. So you got out and your neighbor down the street, everybody. And so you felt that.
That's true.
And so what happens a lot now is veterans get out and they just disperse. And then they don't have the one person they knew would make sure that they had their back anywhere near them. And one of the things I tell a lot of veterans is, I'm like, just pick a day you're going to call your battle buddy every day. And frankly, also try to live near each other.
Right.
Just knowing that, like, it's little things like that that can just make all the difference. Like, New Orleans has gone through hell in the past 20, 30 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we have such a community because we're just like, we know, we're like, wait, okay, hey, I got you, you know? Like, when Ida hit, people were like, hey, I was like, I'm checking on your house. I'm checking on your house. Is this person okay? Is this, you know? And to have that and know it's so important. And so I just always, like, you know, tell veterans, I'm like, find your people and never let them go. You know,
and that's the South. That's how the South is, and that's why I love living in the South, is because people got your back in the South.
Yep.
I've lived all over the country, and this is the only place where I feel at home, where I can meet a complete stranger and they invite me into their house and feed me.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of veterans are actually attracted to the South. So move to the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that, because I got Marines that I served with, man, that I just ran into my staff in COIC about 3 years ago. He was my staff sergeant. I hadn't seen him in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And he just happened to be passing through here, and he found me on Facebook, and we're reconnected now. Good. And my platoon sergeant's 45 minutes down the road, and I've got a tight-knit group of veterans around here to where I can reach out to them. But you was talking about Warriors on Mission. You go to warriorsonmission.org, but we're not only doing the HOPE curriculum, now he's doing the Warrior Family curriculum to deal with families who are suffering from it.
Yep.
And there's 2 documentaries on there, and they're filming a third. One's called Honoring the Code. The other one's called Invisible Scars. And now they're filming one called The Warrior Family. And I actually got to see like a clip of it. And they're talking to a family who this Marine, he went back for his guys, and he was trying to provide cover for them to get in to be able to get them out of a hot zone. And he ended up taking 2 rounds in the chest, and he died. And they were trying to figure out how to process it, because a sibling said, you know, in all of the VA paperwork, there's only about this much that talks about how siblings can deal with the death of a loved one. So that's why he developed this Warrior Family curriculum, to help them try to grieve and get through it as well. And a lot of it talks about, you know, you got to live in the windshield and not the rear view, because the windshield's got the biggest future versus you can't change what happened in the past. But it's really cool, man. You should look them up. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah. Do you guys know about TAPS as well?
I've heard of it.
Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, and they have sibling retreats where it's siblings who have lost their loved one in action or through the military, and they do a lot of suicide ones as well. If you've lost your loved one to suicide. And they should connect, because TAPS was incredible for us. My mom went to so many of those, and they do spouses, they do siblings, they do adult children, because now we're adults when we're losing them, you know. And then they do retreats for kids where they pair them with a mentor that's also military, and you know they have somebody that's like, you know, there, and it's really beautiful what they do. Because
I've never heard of them.
I have to check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, because there is, you know, the two demographics in the veteran community that I feel don't get any love or attention or resources are the children of veterans and siblings. Everybody is all about helping the spouse or the active duty member, but even my own children, I just, you know, I I want more resources for them. And I'm really glad that they hear that there's something for siblings, because, you can't imagine also losing a brother or sister that you grew up with. Yeah. But you've done a lot of work with a couple different organizations, and one that you sent me I thought was particularly interesting and a very innovative way to start the process of stopping and decreasing suicide prevention. As I told you, veterans are stubborn as hell. Trying to get them to go to the VA to even talk to a therapist is like,
the VA isn't all bad. You got to get the right person. And sometimes
right.
you need, like, I've sat with a veteran where he was on hold for 3 hours and we just had coffee and hung out for 3 hours till someone picked up the phone, because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they don't want to go. They don't like the approach. That's why I went to grad school for public health, is so I could design tailor-made military public health care programs. But until we convince them, what you're doing with Vision Coalition is a great step towards keeping them safe until we can convince them. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So Vision Coalition came out of, I was basically invited to be on an advisory board for a VA research project about firearms and suicide specifically. And a lot of people are like, why just guns? Because 82% of veteran suicides in Louisiana are by firearm. That's why. And it's because veterans are comfortable with guns. They get them. They like having them around. Makes all the sense in the world. And so they wanted to actually start with what do we not know? And let's go in and so I helped connect them to a lot of veterans that were hesitant to talk, but did, about their experience of suicides, their experience of the firearm issue, this, that, why they don't go to the VA to get the trigger lock, why they don't go to the VA to talk to them about gun storage. And the people who ran this program, Gala and Ray is a veteran and deployed. And so that helped a lot, but they were very willing to be like, we know the approach isn't working. And so it's been this really small step by step by step. And now a veteran named Matt Bailey, who actually connected to them through that research program, started this thing with them called Vision Coalition. And there's a ton of different things it's going to do. But one of the biggest projects is called the Armory Project. And it's basically helping gun shop owners be available and have a little pamphlet there for gun storage. And then when you want your gun back, you go to the gun shop and you say, I want it back. And they go, here you go. And it's because basically what I used as an example with Heather is, I know a lot of veterans who were at the shooting for November 5th, 2009, and they just know it's a trigger. It's a trigger when it's coming up. It's a trigger when there's going to be a news story that day. So if you know that, and you know you haven't been doing well all year, the goal would be that you can either go to a buddy. You can go to a buddy anytime, right? Just can you hold these for me? I'm moving some stuff around and there'll be kids in the house, whatever. But the idea is that then you can go to your local gun shop and have them hold your gun for a while so that you don't make that 10-second decision. Because if you can build in a 5-minute wait before you go grab something, your survival rate skyrockets. And people don't realize how important time is when you're in a mental health crisis. And just getting the gun out of your house for a little bit. And it doesn't have to be all of them. I mean, we all hunt, we all this, right? But if there's one you're comfortable with, that if you were going to do the thing, and that's kind of the goal. And then the other thing I've talked about is that the pamphlets in the gun shop. So basically, even if you're never going to take it to the gun shop, it gives somebody the idea of I'm not doing well. Maybe I should go to my buddy and drop those off. Maybe I need to, because my dad had guns and my mom kept going because she's uncomfortable with them. And I was like, I didn't want a gun in my house for 2 years after Dad died. I just didn't. And I was right. And yay. And so it's little things like that where it's how can we put the power back into the veterans' hands? And then also there's a lot of peer-to-peer stuff that's going to happen with that. They want to reach out and they're trying to get a couple more gun shop owners in Louisiana. There's some legislation that they're working on to try to get that civil liability to kind of be less, because it's not anyone's fault if they give someone back a gun and they do something. And it's all those things, Oh, Heather, you disappeared. Heather?
She bounced.
Oh no.
We're still here.
Yeah. But so it's all those things. And it's keeping it out of veterans are, I know a lot of veterans particularly, they're very private about their mental health in that way. And I was talking to a war journalist about this because he said a lot of veterans have this thing where they'll crack the window a little bit to get help. And if the response isn't easeful or kind, that window goes right back up.
Yeah.
And so a gun shop owner is never going to be like, why do you need me to store your gun? They're going to be like, okay, great. If they do that. And then your battle buddy's probably not going to be weird either. And I think it's about getting veterans the power to help themselves, because I think with the way we talk about suicide in this world and in the way we talk about it in the media, it looks like it's a mountain nobody can conquer. And that just isn't true. There's so many people I know who've lived through suicide plans, who've lived through like almost doing it and not doing it and living, literally getting to the point where they had a plan and not doing the plan. Yeah. And it's possible, and I think things like this can help that. Yeah.
So how did you transition? I mean, not going from wanting a gun in your house for 2 years after your father died to transitioning to the character that you're playing on The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead is all about guns and
and let me be clear,
and all that stuff.
I learned to shoot a .22 when I was 8. I was born in Montana.
Right.
So I'm not like scared of them. I just knew.
No, I understand that, but I can understand how it could be a trigger. It could be a trigger for you.
I was I was also just angry and hurt, and I was like, if I'm having a really shitty day, I don't want to be like, like, I need to, be aware of who I am as a person, right? And so when I transitioned to Walking Dead, like one of the things I found interesting was how many actors don't take shooting classes and don't know weapons well, particularly when like we're in a world where I'm like, they're everywhere. I'm like, and so like the armor and I had lots of good talks and stuff, because people just, like the difference between a clip and a magazine and why they name them differently, and I don't know. I'm not savvy on like assault rifle, land, and semi. I'm not savvy, but I know enough to know what I don't know. Right. And so I had a great time. I just get very picky about gun safety. So when there's people who aren't being particularly as safe as I think they should be, in terms of not like severe, because I know there's a horrible stuff in the news, but like just little stuff, like even if it's a rubber gun and you're going to point it at like somebody, I'm like, don't, it doesn't get in the habit of just being safe. And so I get real picky about stuff like that, where I'll be the one who's like, but that's because that's how I was taught. Like my dad showed us the rifle, taught us how to use it. He was just like, this is the rule. And so I tend to be very like that.
So and I know this is a controversial subject, especially with the field that you're in, but thinking back to what happened with Alec Baldwin on the set that he was on, how is the safety protocol on a movie set? And is it, because I know being a Marine, we have to clear the weapon, we can't turn it in, and we get checked 3 or 4 times before we even fire a round. So I guess for me, I'm like, I can understand, if something happened, but at the same time, I just don't know what the protocol is for that. But as a Marine, I know what it is. So I just wanted to see what you had to say about that. Not specifically that incident, because I don't want to get into all that, but just because
I'm trying to be like, how do I? The protocol specifically on every set I've ever been on has been that multiple people check every bullet that comes on set, every gun that comes on set, and then when it gets to like where I am on set, an AD checks the weapon. They don't hand me the weapon, they check the weapon. And then what the protocol has been for me, and I've been on sets that are run very well, is they show it to me clear, or they show me blanks. And they say, these are blanks. You cannot shoot them, because a blank will still shoot your finger off.
Right.
And I also, if I'm ever given a weapon that's been cleared and it's real, but if there's nothing in it, I also check it myself. And then I check it before I give it back. That's because I come from that, right?
Right.
That background. So that's the protocol. So what I see happen sometimes is you get short lessons about how a weapon works. And what I wish the film community could do more of across the board is take every actor who's going to use that weapon and give him a real solid. Yeah. Now we're on.
I was like, I don't know what happened. I tried to hit comments and then all of a sudden it just froze.
But now we're on the subject of guns and movies. And I was like, what I wish they would do more of is make it a requirement that actors who are using weapons have to go to a shooting range and take a proper lesson from somebody to learn how to shoot and learn how they work. Because things like, there's no way to say this without saying it, I pulled the hammer back. Mm-hmm. You should know what that means.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
And I think a lot of actors don't. Right. And I don't think that's anyone's complete fault all the time. But I do wish we had more training and more stuff. Because there was stuff, I will say this, like in Walking Dead, where there were sniper rifles that missed. And it got a lot of attention from the fans. And the armorers were like, they don't he felt like there were moments where you're like, I don't think the people writing about the weapon understand how the weapon works, because I've shot a sniper rifle from 1950 at 100 yards and hit it, and I'm not trained. And that was iron sights. And I think people don't realize that some of these weapons work the way they do. And so what I wish for the film community is that as we continue to write stories that have guns in them, because we live in the real world, we're telling stories about the real world or future worlds or whatever, that people just respect the gun and take the class and learn more about it. Because I think, and I was talking to Heather about this before we started, I think gun culture has to shift to like respect. I was telling her, I was like, I didn't buy a circular saw not knowing how to use it. You know,
sure.
It's a dangerous tool. It's very functional. I have some great shelves now in my backyard, right? But I know how to use it. And so it's about respect. They're not toys. And so I tend to get picky with people about gun safety. But
no, I get it. I mean, a perfect segue is this. I mean, if a state is going to make a 16-year-old take a hunter safety course, then I think everybody who's handling a weapon, unless you've been trained properly, we were trained in the military or police officers or whatever, and my hat's off to them for doing a concealed weapons permit. That's great. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're going to do that, don't make it a concealed weapons permit. Make it a firing and a gun ownership class, because, we can debate this all day long, man, but guns don't kill people. People kill people, and it's all in how you actually, if you know what you're doing with the weapon, man. I mean, and there's also, it's crazy.
I think we have to give, one of the things I thought about with the Aurora shooting specifically is you have somebody that's never, ever, ever bought a gun, and they go in and they buy 1,000 rounds and an assault rifle.
That's a red flag.
That should red flag.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm not saying, and because people get very the government doesn't need to be in my business, and I'm like, that's fair. But we do have to consider the fact that we have these incredibly powerful tools, and we've got to figure out how to make it safe for everybody so that the terrible psychotic people who are vicious and shitty, excuse my language, don't kill everybody with it. And some of that you can't prevent, because I do tend to talk about this a lot. I will say what I see a lot when people talk about guns or gun violence, everybody talks about AR-15s and mass shootings. Most of the gun violence in America is Glocks, and it's street violence. We talk about mass shootings because we're scared because it came to the suburbs. We don't talk about the fact that parts of Chicago and parts of New Orleans, I know teenagers who knew at least 3 people who were murdered by a Glock by the time they were 17. And we have a violence issue that has to get solved with a lot of different things, including helping to get people out of poverty, including helping to get people opportunities, including trade schools. And so I tend to not be able to fit anything into a soundbite, because I just tend to see things as there's about 6 different things that have to happen to help solve it. And I do tend to think people want a simple answer. And I think there's not that many simple answers, And
that happens with a lot of things in our veteran community is, you get focused on one thing and somebody's like, well, why doesn't your nonprofit do this too? It's look, we can't do everything. That's why we have so many different nonprofits, is so that we can take care of this cog, you take care of this one, you take care of this one. Because when you get out, there's a million different things that you have to adjust to. It's not just getting out and getting a job. There's a bunch of things. And I was telling Kerry that I've been able to use my public health assignments in my actual own company. And one of the things that set a couple of students off is I said, look, I grew up in Wyoming. We grew up with guns. Everybody in high school had rifles in the back of their car. We learned how to shoot when we were little. I said, why don't we use the same concept as we did with sex education? Why don't we have gun education like they do in Wyoming elementary schools in PE class? Mm-hmm. Teach them from a young age to respect them, because when they started teaching about sexual education that was so taboo for so long, teenage pregnancies went down by like 75%, and so did STDs. And so it's the same concept that education can teach people that are not living in gun cultures to respect them as tools and not toys, and know like how dangerous they are.
And there's stuff with like, this is a weird segue, but the FCC has very specific rules about showing how guns work on film. And that I don't actually like them because I don't think it shows kids what they really do. You're allowed to show, there's some sort of like, it's very loophole-y, where you're allowed to show the gun shoot. You're not allowed to show the bullet go in. And there's all these weird loopholes around how we show violence and how it can get rated R or this. And the reason film avoid being rated R is because you just get less money because people can't go to the theater, right? And so I just tend to be very like, the more transparent and honest we are about all of this, the better, because what we also like discount is, generally speaking, if anybody, your mortality understanding just doesn't even exist till you're 25. And people kind of like, when I say that out loud, they're always like, what? I'm like, no, like psychologically, you as a 17-year-old didn't quite understand that you could die. Not that you didn't at all, but that like you're crazy, your hormones, you're this, you're that. I mean, nobody's normal when they're 17, right? Mm-mm. And so like there was a suicide.
Definitely not.
There was a suicide epidemic in India, and they saved a 10-year-old boy from hanging himself. And they asked him why. And he said, I wanted to try it. Because the link of I'm going to die and it will be permanent just isn't in his brain yet. And so you look at like the way guns are sort of either completely not talked about, or they can be called toys, or they're, gun culture world. And you sort of go, if these kids don't have a sense of mortality or death, which at 16, I did stupid shit. I did so much stupid shit. I'm so glad Facebook didn't exist. So like,
I think we all are.
Yeah. Like, I'm so glad. I was like, skeletons, but like to realize all of that. So then when you look at a lot of the street violence with Glocks, it's all kids who are like usually 15 to 22, particularly in New Orleans and particularly in the gang world. And, there's all of these things that I could go down a rabbit hole and talk about for the next 2 hours, but it's this stuff where like, as we talk about it, we've just got to get it across that it's like, no. It's like stove hot. Electricity is bad. Right. And so teaching people what guns really do isn't the worst thing. I don't think, but I tend to try to avoid talking about it in interviews because everybody wants to soundbite it. Like when they take the soundbite later, and I'm like, I need to write this down so everyone can read it. Yeah. And it's also like, I'm like,
And I'll say this, man, to segue off of that. I think a lot of the problem with the fear of guns in this country has a lot to do with the leadership. Not just from a political standpoint, whether it's media, politics, or whatever. Everybody tries to put the fear of God into people about firing weapons or what's going on with them. But if we embraced it more, like you're saying, and taught the education classes and got more people involved with it, they would understand that it's not the weapon's really not the problem. I mean, because you think about it.
The weapon doesn't make you fat. You choose to eat the food. The spoon is your tool for eating it. It's not the one or cause of it.
I will say that like
exactly.
I have like a counterintuitive way that I've thought about the way we should treat guns, but I've just every time I talk about it, it gets weirder. But like, I don't drive a semi truck because I don't know how. So you have to get a special license to drive a semi truck. Mm-hmm. So I do tend to think that there are weapons that I not to say that no one should be allowed to get them, but to say that I do think you need to see classes before you get them. And what that actually might do is prevent the shooters from getting them. mass shooters tend, not all of them, Sandy Hook was not like this. He knew how to shoot his weapon. But like, if you get these people who are mentally ill and want to go in and just kill a lot of people, they're probably not going to show up to a class weekly. And so you avoid without even trying, you avoid that guy getting the gun just because, and it's not foolproof, nothing is. But I do tend to think what happens with guns is people go, well, let's do nothing because if we do anything, it might take it away. And I don't think that's the answer either, you know? No. And I do think you should know how to use every weapon in your house. Like I have a double home and my good friend lives on the other side. And I had a friend come over and teach her how every single weapon worked in my home because I did not want her not knowing how to clear it and get it out of the way. Because to me, it's extremely important that everybody feels safe around them, particularly because they're going to be in my home. And we just had the class and it was great. And, you know, and I think there are people who hate them and are very scared of them. I have friends like that, but we could talk forever about this.
I'll say this, and this will be the last thing about guns and we'll move on. But like you're talking about, my son, I got a son and I had him dry fire a 22 single shot rifle for 2 weeks. Like I did grass week in the Marine Corps. Yeah. And I taught him the positions. I taught him proper breathing technique. And I was like, you're dry fire. And he's like, Daddy, I want to shoot a round. I was like, nope, you're not doing it. And he did that for 2 weeks straight. I put a round in there the first time, and at 75 yards, he hit dead center on the bullseye. And he's like, oh, my goodness. I was like, yeah, you got to respect the weapon, keep your finger straight off the trigger. And when you squeeze, whenever you fire, you need to intend to kill whatever you're aiming at. Yeah. I was like, but you don't do that unless you're going to eat whatever your kill is, unless it's just a really last-ditch effort, which is called deadly force.
So, I saw that, John Porta.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why the FCC is weird. It's weird. Yeah. But yeah. Well, to segue to this, I think one of the things that we don't talk enough about with gun violence and mass shootings in this country is the mental health aspect. And like to go back to that, it's like one of the basic things psychologists tend to do is go, are you a danger to yourself or others? And so like mental health is so important to get, you know, kids, like veterans, everybody to just take a breath. And one of the things I talk about with this, then I need to get back because I am not always great on social media, but I used to do mental health hygiene Mondays because we brush our teeth every day. We brush our hair. We shower. We take care of our bodies, right? And so there was this great TED Talk the psychologist did about we don't teach kids how to do mental hygiene. Mm-hmm. And so it's this idea of the world's going to get stressful. How do you deal with it? Do you work out? Do you take a walk? Do you garden? Like, how do you do your mental hygiene? You know, do you clean your brain out by meditating? Do you run? Do you work out? Like, what's your therapy? And so as we talk about all this stuff, like I used to go and talk to high schoolers with, and this is a totally separate show, with the first cousin of the guy who killed my dad. Because we were both tired of extremism and he lost his cousin too to this bullshit, right? And one of the things we tell high school students is like, you think you're alone with your problems, you're not. You think like, because if you can get kids at 12, 14, 15 to get mental health then, they won't go down the crazy train at 20. Or if they start to, they'll go, oh, no, I got to go talk to somebody. And so if we can take that stigma away at like 15, we've solved so many of our issues and we don't talk about it enough. Like mental hygiene is a thing, like a phrase I try to get into the zeitgeist because I'm like, we've got to talk about it. Like I notice when I don't walk my dogs, I feel crappier. You know, like when my dad died, I ran a bunch of half marathons for 2 years. Now I was slow. Let me be clear. I wasn't good at them, but I did them because it helped me, you know? And so it's like figuring out how to process all that stuff, you know, and getting it in young and talking about it young is really, I think, helpful. So, yeah.
I love that term, mental health hygiene. Yeah. When I teach veterans about yoga, I teach it with the analogy of working on your car. I was like, we spend thousands of dollars a year on changing our oil and fixing our car, fixing our computers. I was like, why don't we do preventative maintenance on our bodies? And so, but I love that term. I'm going to have to steal that from you.
Yeah, take it because I want it to go everywhere. I'm like, it's mental hygiene. Like, what'd you do?
Because then that also puts in your head that it should be daily.
Yep. Because I told somebody once, I said, the issue I have with the term crisis hotline is that generally speaking, you get people who are stuck in the hole to call. And it's really hard to get out when you're stuck in the hole. And if we can just call it like a mental health hotline, where you can call for resources of pro bono or inexpensive therapists in your area, where you can then we're not all trying to drag somebody out of a hole. We get to them before we get there. And so my goal has always been, I don't want the veteran to get to the crisis point. I'd like to catch you before you ever pick up the gun or the bottle. That's what I would love to be able to do. And that's where, when we talk about mental hygiene, that's something.
And that's something that we're really trying to push, is that we were so hyper focused on helping veterans that I told my business partner, I was like, we really should focus on active duty. Let's start there first.
Yeah.
So that we can decrease the influx of patients coming into the VA that have so many issues, and then move on to the veterans, like stop it before it actually gets created.
Preventative. Yeah.
And if you look at, other cultures, like I took a class, it's called Culinarmislo at University of New Mexico from the Dean of Students, and it's Mexican folk killing. And they give the example of holistic health as a child that got bit by a dog. And they said they not only treated the wound, they actually treated the child's psychology at the time, because they didn't want the child to be fearful of dogs. So they were treating it at the same time as a preventative measure from having that mental health issue later. So I think that maybe like starting there, like you said, is maybe where the veteran community really should shift almost to starting at that point. And the gun storage is a vital step in that. And I hope, as our viewers said, we hope that you can get that in every single state, because it's needed.
Yeah. And I wanted to say the website, and I have paper because it's a Vision Coalition, and it's called the Armory Project. So if you Google those things, you'll find it. And it's just such a great, and it's such a simple idea too, of like, if you're not doing well, get take care of yourself. And that means for everything. If you're somebody that tends to go to alcohol, maybe like if you're having a bad time, maybe get all the hard liquor out of your house, right? If you're somebody who has Xanax around, but that it's something you overuse, like it goes for anything, right? If it's kind of your thing that you'd go to hurt yourself, maybe don't have it around when you're having a bad time,
Exactly.
True story. And I just thought about this, but what if the government with the military extended active duty from 4 years to 4.5 years? But once you do your 4 years of active duty, the last 6 months is nothing but mental health training with transitioning back to civilian society. And I don't know why they haven't done that.
That's kind of what we're trying to get them to do.
Yeah.
It's like 60 days out, we want you to take a mental and physical assessment. We want you to take them before the PRTs. We want you to take them at least 60 to 90 days out from TAPS class, so that they can tell right now, like, does this member need to stay in a little bit longer, so that we can help them with this issue before they just turn them out into the civilian world. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And then you're at time. Yeah. Because I was like, I feel like one of the things I should try to get done. And I was like, every time I think about this, like, do PSAs that are aimed at civilians, because so many civilians don't understand PTSD from veterans and this and that. And I just like periodically want to do like, and I always think about that of like something. I'm going
to send you a video of a short film that just came up on my page today. I started crying when I watched it, but it's pretty much a PSA about that, of what it's like to have PTSD as a veteran. And I love PSAs. I promote them all the time because I think they're powerful, and they've been proven to be effective all around the world in decreasing health conditions. So totally agree. But we're getting to the end of our hour. We've got another show coming on. Walk the Line with Radio is coming on. I want to thank Kerry so much for coming on. I literally, every time I talk to you, I can just like sit here and talk for hours.
I know.
You're so cool. You're so cool and laid back, and we love having you on the show. And thanks, Chris, for coming on. And thank God you came on, because I got lost. I fell off
Oh no.
I'm glad that,
Yeah,
I'm
that
so
would
glad
have
that you
been
were there.
awkward as hell. That would have been awkward
There's
as
been
hell.
like,
Yeah.
so. Just
No,
gonna
this
leave
was
it so.
great. Thank y'all so much. I felt like and I learned about a lot of different organizations. So if I might email you and be like, I forgot the name of this one. Can you email it to me? 'Cause,
Absolutely.
yeah,
We'd
I
love
this
to
stuff.
connect you.
Yeah.
But so we're going to wrap up the show and do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have not gone to the Vet Radio Syndicate Facebook page, please like, follow, and share with all your friends. And also, I mentioned that I'm doing a new project called Mats for Troops. I've had some active duty brothers in Africa reach out to me. Active duty wants to do yoga, y'all. I don't know what all you veterans are waiting for, but they are asking me, please help us find a big company or somebody that can donate a lot of yoga mats because they don't have enough for everyone that wants to do that. And that makes my heart smile hearing them say that, because the Mustang officer that emailed me about it is like 6'8" and he does yoga. So my project is I'm going to be teaching yoga at a couple different events. I'll be at a UFC event up in Columbus, Ohio in June. In between fights, I'm going to be teaching the fighters MMA stretch, and veterans are welcome to join in those classes. All I ask is, instead of payment, that you bring a yoga mat that I can send overseas. I'll also be teaching in San Antonio, Texas on July 4th weekend for the Undies Ruck. Anybody that can't do a full ruck, you can come do yoga with me. Again, donate mats. That's with Project Steel out of San Antonio that helps get veterans off the street. So we're going to end with a toast. You stole my thunder. Thanks. We're going to we're going to do it again. So in the veteran community, we have times that we do toast for the fallen. A lot of the times happen on Veterans Day or when other things happen. But tonight, I want to do a toast for those that run toward the gunfire. Warrant Officer Mike Cahill. If you cheat, I hope it's death that you cheat. If you lie, lie with someone you love. If you fight, do it for the right reason. And if you drink, come drink one with us here.
Cheers.
Syndicate.
Cheers. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week. It's Vet Week, where you can hop on live with me and have a drink. I hope you guys have a great week and a great weekend. We'll talk.
And don't forget the last half of the season finale of The Walking Dead. Make sure you guys tune in.
Yes,
that's also happening. That's and I'm on the thing about Pam this week, episode 6. I'm in episode 6.
Oh,
shut up! Are you really?
I am.
We can keep talking, but I gotta end the show.
Yeah, okay, bye.